with the IONET team. How are you doing, IONET team?
Hey, good to be here again.
Doing great, sir.
Excellent. So this week is going to be a focus on internal community questions and then some questions around the space in general. We'll start with a question from the community. What role does artificial intelligence agents play in IONET's infrastructure, and how do they contribute to enhancing its services?
Sure, I can take a crack at this. So I think there's a couple different ways to sort of think about this, right? AI agents are obviously kind of an integral part of decentralized AI and the new narrative in AI and crypto. And I think they play a pretty deep part in sort of like how IONET thinks about its infrastructure as well, right? So first, for all AI agents to operate autonomously, they need access to sort of a permissionless, decentralized compute network in order to ensure that there's no bottlenecks when they're trying to accomplish whatever directives that they're trying to do. So, in that way, IONET's infrastructure is specifically set up to be fully permissionless, no KYC, extremely easy and frictionless to use, where anyone, whether that's a human or an AI agent, can automatically go there, configure their cluster, and deploy it within 2 minutes to be able to get access to the compute that they need. So, in that way, the permissionless infrastructure of IONET is really key to sort of how AI agents operate. And I think the second piece is sort of the decentralized nature of it, right? By IONET being spread out over, I don't even know how many countries it is now, probably like 70, 80, maybe 100 at this stage in terms of where our compute network is actually available with specific nodes. This decentralized distribution of our GPU nodes as well acts as a really critical piece of how AI agents can operate most efficiently, right? Because with an AI agent, it's constantly taking in new data, it's constantly evaluating different options, it's constantly trying to analyze and make decisions. And with each of those chain of thought processes, it's performing an inference, which requires sort of compute to kind of for it to continue to do that. And when it's operating in conditions where decisions need to be made fast and quickly, and a lot of data needs to be processed, the latency for that inference needs to be as low as possible. So, with a decentralized network with nodes available globally, like how we have at IONET, that actually enables autonomous agents to make those decisions a lot faster and with the least amount of latency. So, in that way, the inference latency reduction plus the permissionless nature of IONET's infrastructure really supports sort of how AI agents operate in this new world.
Yeah, just add to what Tausif said, right? So we use AI autonomous agents in few places, but we potentially use AI in a lot of places. The fundamental difference is that in the agents piece, they can autonomously execute things also. But in our side, we have a lot of places where we have AI models doing a bunch of job, and they flag things out to us, good and bad both. But the action based on that data and the reporting which they do, that execution we haven't done with the agent itself. That piece is remaining, and that is for myriad of reasons we don't do it, right? Because in many cases we take community feedback on top of the model. In many cases we have like our other players which we work with to get the inputs like that. There are very reasons why we haven't made it fully automated to enable the AI side executing it also, right? Few places other than where what Tausif explained, where we use AI is one thing comes in which comes in mind straight away is our fraud area. One of the reasons why as a company we are doing well is that we are basically decentralized from the core, meaning our supply also is coming from multiple suppliers. We don't own the inventory. And one of the reasons we are one of the very rare players who are this pure is because figuring it out which GPU is good, is real, is a very hard problem to solve. And to be honest, we as a company also took a long time to crack this problem. And a lot of other DePINs basically ran away from this problem and they started owning their own inventory. So from supplier side, they were centralized, but they wrote some smart contract on some layer at top and they started calling them DePINs. But we always focus on being a pure DePIN, right? And one place where we use AI is exactly this area. So we capture a lot of data of GPUs, suppliers, what inventory they attach, what benchmark numbers we get from different suppliers, and on an average for that particular model, what those benchmarks should be. And this whole data crunching analysis and then flagging what's good, what's bad internally in the company is being done by AI, right? We haven't made it totally autonomous to basically have a trigger that, okay, this inventory is good, push it out, and so on and so forth, because we do multiple other checks also within this to come at that confidence as a network, right? This is one place where we have heavily invested in AI as a company, and it has bared a lot of good fruits to us because as a business, we have been able to grow because we were pure deepen, and that was because we invested a lot in AI very early, which a lot of other players in the industry didn't do. That was one. Second thing is we as a company are normally very invested in pure building of products. Right? We're not very active, and that was one of the fault of ours, the company. That we were not very active on X. Like we were predominantly all builders, keeping our head down, building stuff, and we were losing a lot of traction, like where the narrative is headed, what is being discussed on X, and so on and so forth. We were like totally focused on business. So we got this input. So what we did was we created an AI model where we scrape a lot of things around AI, deepens, and this whole industry uh, overall. We scrape the content, and then we have our AI model which flags out. This is where they see the industry moving. These are a few things which are coming up in the future. This is where the trend starts to go towards, and then we match it up to where our business is headed, what our customers are asking, what our roadmap is, and then we marry them together on like a quarterly basis and see are we aligned. So this whole thing is also being done by AI. These are two other places where we have seen a lot of value and ROI coming in overall, other than like what Tausif said, where we're focusing on.
And picking up on that idea of planning and building for the future, the community wants to know what's the biggest challenge IONET is facing this year and what strategies are being implemented to overcome them. Both of you have talked about what you're all building in the future. It'd be great to do a summary and rehash for people who haven't heard those previous episodes.
Touch wood, God's been really great. They've blessed it with like a very good community, a really good suppliers, a set of suppliers, and a problem statement which is real, and we could actually deliver the value. So business-wise, basically, like we see everything basically working, it's all guns blazing. Like you actually see the ARR numbers on the platform that's exponentially increasing. So on the business side, the tech side, things are working fine. Touch wood. Where we are having a problem is that whenever you do good, there are other issues which come as a part of it, right? So right now we are basically hiring engineers in the tech side, and honestly, like finding good set of engineers which have the same set of values which you run your company with, it's not that easy, right? Similarly, like Tosif was trying to hire more BD people, people who have a very deep knowledge of GPU infrastructure. In the recent past, he's been able to hire a couple of good people, but he's also, I think, hiring still a few more people. So I think as a company, when we are growing, we want to keep our core values the same and scale as our business is scaling. I think that's a challenge. Not the business, not the tech, but as a company, when we are hiring more people and keeping our core value, that's been a challenge, honestly, personally for me. And like a shout out, if you guys know some smart engineers, please refer them to us. We have a referral bonus externally also. So yeah, I think that's personally for me has been a challenge, finding people, good people overall when we're growing.
Yeah, I think just to double down on what Gaurav mentioned there, I think it's really interesting seeing the company evolve over the past 12 months and kind of thinking about what the next 12 months for us would look like, right? Obviously, in 2024, we were very much in build mode, building out the product, building out sort of like the initial core team, figuring out go to market, trying to find product market fit. And I think, the way we ended last year in terms of where our product was, in terms of where our revenue was, we've shown a lot of success and a lot of product market fit and a lot of community members and clients being really intrigued by our value proposition and joining the platform, right? So I think in terms of my perspective on what 2025 looks like, it's very much what Gaurav was saying. It's really thinking about how do we actually scale this, right? It's one thing to go from 0 to 1, but it's like a whole other beast to go from 1 to 10 or 10 to 100, right? And I think it brings in a whole host of sort of issues and things to kind of really think about and problems to solve around scaling and operations and process and talent and making sure we hire the right people for the right roles and we're thinking about the right things and thinking about strategy at a high level as we evolve too. So at least from a business and revenue perspective, as Gaurav mentioned, I've been pretty focused on hiring and growing out the team. I think in terms of the types of clients that we're seeing and a lot of sort of like major Web2 AI ML companies and startups trying to join the platform, we've added people from NVIDIA, AMD, Lambda Labs, Chainlink, all over the place to essentially kind of help us grow and continue to build this vision out. So I think as we kind of, I think we ended 2024 about like 25 million ARR, likely hoping to, probably end this year with in some sort of like multiple of that, right? Whether it's like 5, 10x, we'll see. But in terms of establishing that growth, I think we really need to sort of finely tune like a go-to-market engine and ensure that we have the right people in place to be able to kind of take us to that next level. So those are some of the things that are top of mind for me going into this new year.
And both of you have, talked a lot about the difference of IONet's compute network versus centralized big three, big tech. My question is, what makes IO's compute network unique compared to other decentralized compute networks, especially as the space continues to grow out?
So
Yes,
I think it's a moving target, right? Like it's not one thing; it's ever evolving. I'll say, because the nature of business is such that whenever you do something good, people will just come and copy you, and they'll try to be there, right? For instance, when we came in, people were just trying to write some smart contracts, some layers, own some inventory of their own, and just say we are deep in and trying to scale, right? We were one of the ones which we said, okay, let's break the whole this paradigm, and let's try to focus on getting more than 500,000 GPUs, right? And how do we do that? We figured out that. So we were one of the companies which had like more than 500,000 GPUs right from the beginning. So we were the one of ones at that time, right? Then people saw how we have done it, what model we have we have created, and what made us succeed. Then we see some players copying us, right? But now what keeps and makes us different is now the other products which you're building, right? For instance, we have created a lot of cloud technologies now. For instance, like we were one of the rare companies, in fact, the only company, if I'm not wrong, which had Ray clustered in the Web3 side. And if people don't know, Ray technology is one of the technologies where you can think of in a naive way, a software layer, which abstracts away the thousands of GPUs you work with. So you work with this layer, and this layer internally works with thousands of GPUs. Right? It becomes more seamless to work with the highest scale number of GPUs. And all the big companies like OpenAI of the world and like other big giants, they normally work with Ray. And it's a very niche, new, very soon, like we are seeing more and more people adopting to it. We were one of the very first companies who built this. And now you will see some of the other DePINs who've been there in the industry for 5 years, like they copying us and bringing this tech in. Right? So we basically made a breakthrough there. In fact, we made changes in a way that you can literally create clusters, not just with multiple GPUs, but GPUs in multiple cities and locations also, which was also very niche. Right? We built that. Now, some people I've heard is starting to copy that. Now, what we did, we basically built more products which the users want. Now we are coming up with IO intelligence, right? I'm sure, like we already have such a huge demand for IO intelligence. Like we literally get multiple like customers in offline reaching out to us for consuming that already for IO intelligence which we're launching, right? So that's been a success even before launch. We've already given the test API to a couple of people to use it. The feedback is good, and they'll become an early consumer of that very soon, right? Once we launch it publicly. So that is a new product which makes us different than a lot of other DePINs. I'm sure once we launch that, then they'll try to catch up to that. We'll bring something new. So I think we are builders. And what we saw, as we said in earlier AMAs also, is that we built our company in a way that if we run our own AI companies, what are the products we need to succeed as we grow? And we have a huge roadmap. We will keep executing on that. And like every quarter, you will see something different than others because they will be trying to catch up and we'll build something new. We'll always be one step ahead. We have a huge, very good execution layer on our side. The team is very strong. So I'll say like this narrative, how we are different, will keep changing. But at the end of the day, I'm very confident we'll be the first one in the Web3 space which will have a decentralized cloud end to end. Meaning, anytime you want to create a decentralized AI or an app, and you need compute, data, like consumption and storage side, right? Network, anything you want, we'll have that end to end stack overall, and we'll be the first player reaching there purely.
Does anything to add on that one, or?
I think, I think Gaurav was pretty comprehensive with what he described there in terms of how to really differentiate, right? And I think, yeah, I kind of really just want to sort of like reiterate that decentralized cloud aspect of our vision, um, because I think it kind of touches on like a really important point, because it's sort of, when you kind of think about deepins and sort of how IONET kind of really started as a compute deepin, it's sort of really the first step in terms of any, even if you kind of look back at the history of like like cloud providers like AWS and other hyperscalers, like that particular foundational piece needs to be figured out, needs to be really dialed in, needs to be grown to scale, and needs to establish sort of product market fit with customers before you can really do anything else, because it's very complicated and it requires a lot of coordination across a globally distributed base of stakeholders with a variety of incentives that you need to kind of tightly align to make sure that the whole system and the model works. So I think in this past year, we've kind of really shown um, our strength in being able to build the largest decentralized like physical infrastructure network for compute, and how we've been able to source thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of GPUs across the world to come onto our network and offer up their GPU supply. And I think what kind of really differentiates us from other, compute deepens out there is kind of now that we've figured out that foundational aspect of our business, now we can really start to think about that broader vision of like, hey, let's really think about what our developers and users and clients really want out of our platform. Like, what are they actually trying to accomplish, and how do we really build these next stage, the step of tools and products and features that helps them further along their journey and accelerate their journey to adopt AI ML technologies within their own products, right? And that involves kind of really abstracting away the developer experience through products like IO intelligence in the model marketplace and things like that, which Gaurav just mentioned. So I think with us being able to, successfully figure out sort of the foundational compute layer and now starting to think about these other broader sort of like problems that we can solve for our customers, I think really sets us apart from other deepins who are, still trying to figure out how to run a successful and like scalable version of that foundational compute layer first.
And then moving into some questions about chips that the community has. Gaurav, a bit of a lightning round here. The first question is, if M4 chips get introduced, will other Apple chips be removed?
Yeah, that'll happen. I think the base M2 layers would go out. I think wait for the announcement, but I'm quite sure that when M4 gets in, M2s will go out. I know that there will be some people who will be impacted. So the supply team and the product team is working on a model, no promises, but I think they're already working on a model where people who have M2 in the network, they get a preferential treatment to add an M4. Like how many they can add and all, it's still TBD. I think please wait for the announcement. Like product and the supply team is working on that. But long story short, yes, when M4 gets added, M2 will be impacted. But the people whose M2s will be removed, they will get the dibs on adding M4 at that time.
And then plans to for future chips, the RTX 5090.
I think there's some benchmarking going out there, so please wait for the numbers for that to happen. So we do two things always when we add in hardware. First is obviously like getting the benchmarks so that we can be confident like what particular incentive rewards we should give to the specific hardware. So that piece is going on. And second is we just don't want to add a hardware for the heck of it. We want to also see what the demand for the respective hardware also in the market is, right? So that you just don't add hardware for the sake of it because it's been launched, it's there in the market. But because if we do add them and there's no usage, it basically doesn't bring any revenue to the network. Or on the contrary, it basically dilutes the suppliers and the inventory which already is in network and how much are they earning. So there's no point in it, right? So we now as a network are going in a direction as we spoke in past CMAs also that we'll be more usage based. That as and when the usage of a respective model goes in, we will open a specific model to be added. And if there's a new model getting launched and we see a demand for that in the market, then we'll add it. So I think both of them should be there. Right now, we are focusing on benchmarks to get the number, what incentive to give. And once the BD team and TOSIF team see that there's respective demand for it, at that time, when the combination of both are there, then we'll add it in the network. I don't think we are close to it right now.
Okay. And then for both of you, obviously the news of DeepSpeak is having impacts in the market and generally would like to know what is your perspective on the role of open source initiatives in AI development. What do you think about DeepSeek's of development and what effect, if any, does it have on IONET?
Fair enough. Tosi, you want to go for it?
Sure. I'm happy to give my 2 cents in here, since this has been talk of the town for the last several days in the AI and crypto world. So yeah, obviously DeepSeek. I've had a chance to kind of try out the app itself and the model within the app. Haven't had a chance to like locally host it and try and do things like that myself, which I think Gaurav has done and he could probably speak to soon. Um, Obviously, it's a very impressive model. It's been able to sort of compete with the big boys of OpenAI's O1 and Song 3.5 from Anthropic as well. So it's really impressive that a smaller lab that's actually an offshoot of a hedge fund out of China is able to kind of deliver this type of performance. I think there's a few things that are still a bit of an open question for me. I think first is sort of the highly doubted $5.5 million training costs that was claimed in the paper by DeepSeek. I think there's a lot of controversy around whether to believe that number or not. I think my take on it is the number is significantly lower than what probably the total cost of the training run actually ended up costing. I think 5.5 million probably was the cost of like the final training run before they shipped it, but there's several training runs of like pre-training, fine-tuning, architectural design that need to be done before that I don't necessarily think have been accurately sort of captured within that 5.5 million number. But there's not really a great way of knowing that exactly, which kind of leading to a lot of panic. And I think the other aspect of what a lot of the chatter was about was essentially, hey, if DeepSeek is able to train something for like something like R1 for $5.5 million, why do OpenAI and Anthropic and a lot of these other sort of foundational model companies need to spend that much? And and why do they need to spend that much with NVIDIA, and is the GPU growth story really sort of still aligned with the AI growth story? And I think for that, it's there's a few different perspectives, but I kind of really think it's overblown in terms of people thinking that, oh, if you don't need as many GPUs to be able to train AI models, GPU demand will actually go down. I think one of the key things that I noted from the DeepSeek paper was some of the efficiency breakthroughs that were really, really key, that enabled them to take advantage of their GPU scarcity in China and figure out more efficient ways to train these models. Luckily, DeepSeek open sourced it and described exactly how they did it. So I actually think this is great for the whole open source movement and AI development in general, where a lot of these other foundational AI model research labs will be able to take advantage of the breakthroughs that DeepSeek has done and be able to apply it into their own training workflows and take advantage of those like cost saving and efficiency benefits as well, thus pushing the whole open source AI space forward even faster. And I think with the whole space moving faster due to these efficiency breakthroughs and being able to take better advantage of GPUs, I think we'll actually see demand for GPUs go up even further because now it's even more accessible to a variety of different companies, right? Like I think it's really changed the game in terms of it's not going to be just OpenAI, just Anthropic, just Cohere, just the hyperscalers like thinking about foundational models because they have access to massive amounts of compute. This actually levels the playing field and opens it up to a lot of smaller companies who can take advantage of these efficiencies, get more out of their GPUs, and really be able to push the whole foundational model space forward. And I think us as IONET are positioned really well for this too, because we are able to provide the largest decentralized global network of GPUs at an even lower price point than what someone could get from hyperscalers or other competitors, right? So I think overall, while there was a lot of turmoil in the markets based on the announcement over the past couple of days, I think DeepSeek and sort of what they've done for the open source AI movement will really, really push the whole space forward.
Yeah, I totally agree, right? I think one thing people should understand is it's extremely hard to innovate something new, and it's comparatively very, very easy to build something very similar and just better in one particular aspect, right? Like it's they're two different things altogether, right? What ChatGPT was trying to solve from past 7-8 years, nobody even thought it was possible. Nobody was even attempting it, right? And once they cracked it, a lot of people came in and say, "Oh, this is the way it works. Let's just copy it and just make a delta better version of it," right? So that's one thing. Like it's actually overblown. But I've played with the model itself. It's good, but as an engineer, like either this is something which is super extraordinary, which they have done, which is like getting it trained within like 5 million words, or it's like honestly, if you ask me as an engineer, that is it practically possible? If I get like the top 50 engineers in the world, I'll still say it's highly improbable. Like I've been in this AI industry from 10 years, and if you tell me, okay, these are the top 50 engineers in the AI side which you have, and let's work for a year and get this done, less than 5 million, I'll say most probably like not possible. It's too good to be true, and I think we are in a deep in business, so we at least practically know because we faced this problem in past also that there are H100s somewhere in the that part of the world, which how it reached there I don't know, but there are, because a lot of people in past have tried to add it to the network, and they were having issues in their uptime and so on and so forth and other complications. There are some in that part of the world. So that's one thing, right? Uh, but the great thing which has happened for the industry is that DeepSeek has created a standard which people have to follow. So what they have done is, first of all, they have created a research paper, and they've launched it, that what has made their model better compared to the other models which are there in the market. And that paper is in very detail, right? Even the API spec which they have given, how you can integrate with the model, is very, very extensive. So they have created a market standard that in future now, anytime any other company releases a model, they have to reach that level. And what will happen because of that is that because new people will also create this research paper with how their model is better, overall as an industry, any new player can just go take a read on the research paper and they'll be up to date that how to make a better version of the same product, and then they can build on top of it. So incrementally as an industry, we will speed up, which is great for developers, right? And now what has happened, like whether it's 5 million thing is true or not, it has basically given a challenge to the American companies. And practically I've worked in a lot of these big companies. In the background, almost always they have a next version of the model which is already in public, already ready 6 months before today itself, and they're just making it more matured. They're just waiting for the marketing to be aligned and so on and so forth. After this recent challenge from DeepSeek, now these models will not wait within the company for 6 months for marketing and bit more matured. There'll be more frequent releases, which will eventually help the industry to get a better version of the models more frequently. So overall, as an industry, I think we're in a good place. We'll see new things, and especially as IO, we have nothing to worry. Why? Like, let's say in the worst cases, which I don't think is true to be honest, but let's say in the worst of the worst cases also, it is real that they have trained it in 5 million and they've trained it in a lower grade hardware, so A100s or 4090s, right? We don't get impacted as IO. Why? Because we're in a marketplace. We don't own the inventory today. If tomorrow our customers start to pivot away from H100 to 4090s, we will start to give them more 4090s. But there are a lot of other DePINs and centralized players who have invested hundreds of millions of dollars in buying those H100s. So if the customers pivot away from the H100s to the old hardware, they will struggle because whatever money they spent in buying those inventories, now that will start to go waste. In our DePIN model, the beauty is we are lightweight, we don't own the inventory. For us to pivot from one hardware to another is extremely easy. So we are basically somewhere in the middle that we are bound to win the way we are set up. So I don't think there's anything to panic overall uh, in either of the cases.
Great. And as we're closing up our session today, I know DeepSeek has taken a lot of information and focus. Is there anything else that either of you are excited about? Any updates from your end that you'd like to share?
So yeah, I think DeepSeek has kind of like dominated the news cycle for sure. I think, I don't know if we talked about this, or it feels like it's been ages since this was even announced. But I think one of the other really interesting sort of like news items from this past week was the whole Stargate project announcement, right? Which was with OpenAI and Oracle and the White House. I think, kind of with DeepSeek and sort of all these fears of sort of, like AI innovation moving towards China. I just like to kind of like remind that, we the importance sort of like AI and data centers and GPUs and hosted compute power in the US as well is something that was like really underlined by like the new administration. And I think it might have gotten overshadowed in the news cycle over the past couple of days by DeepSeek. But I think it really goes to say that, a $500 billion investment into data centers in the US kind of really shows that this sort of cycle of the need for compute and the need to have like the amount of GPUs that will go a long way towards enabling us to get to AGI or ASI is being underlined by everyone, and the importance is sort of like understood by even this administration and some of like the bigger players in the market there. So I think that was really exciting for me to see that the demand for compute isn't slowing down anytime soon, and I think everyone kind of realizes that we will need a lot more compute and GPUs to kind of keep ensuring that the foundational model race kind of continues on.
I totally agree with Tosif. We practically on ground don't see any change in demand. It just keeps increasing over a period of time for us. And all this is noise. I think, guys, you'll yourself see in a month that this is all noise. These kind of things happen. There's a narrative gets built, the narrative gets killed. I think you as a company only succeed if you try to focus on the business and keep building it. These things, like I've been in the industry for long, these things happen all the time. People get sucked into this, and they get distracted, and that's what the killer is. So I think our focus has always been keep our heads down, keep building the business, keep earning the revenue, build things what the customers need, and that's where we are, right? And I think like our builders demanded DeepSeek, we will have a DeepSeek on the platform. People have asked for Llama, we have Llama over there. So we are a platform which gives whatever is there, which enables builders to iterate and build fast, and we always be there. All these kind of narratives will keep coming and keep going. I think we shouldn't be distracted with it, honestly.
All right. And with that, we're going to close out this space. I'd like to thank our guests, our audience. If you have questions for the next AMA, just make sure to join our Discord and ask those questions, and they'll be funneled to us for future weeks. We have an exciting guest next week. Can't wait to have them on our space. Thank you very much to the team, to all of you, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys. Until next time.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day ahead.